Minister, the income limits for social housing have not increased in a decade, while property prices have doubled over the same period, forcing people to turn down work or face the prospect of homelessness. Other families who received the pandemic unemployment payment, despite its temporary nature, have now been forced off the housing list. And in a perverse twist, the budget measures announced yesterday to help families will push more of them off the housing list, resulting in the withdrawal of housing assistance. When will we see changes to these thresholds?
Yeah, as last caller, as you say, I propose to take questions 2 and 3 together. As Deputy Naughton will know, Housing for All was published in September 2021. You're right, the housing limits have not changed for 10-11 years. And as part of the broad suite of social housing reform, I committed to reviewing income eligibility for social housing. The review, which examined the efficiency of the current banding model and income limits applicable to local authorities, has been completed, and I have recently approved implementation of some of its recommendations. The review has now been published and it is on the Department website. The recommendations contained in the review included the commissioning of work to scope and develop options for a revised or new social housing income eligibility model. This work will commence very shortly, and I want it done in a time-bound fashion, and that's been done by the Housing Agency, who I think are in the best position to carry out that work. And they've been tasked with commissioning that. It's expected, and I'm insisting that that work conclude before the end of this year. But pending completion of that work, I've also approved changes to the social housing income eligibility bands in 5 local authorities in Carlow, Clare, Galway County, Laois and Westmeath. So they've all been moved from band 3 to band 2. And accordingly, the baseline income eligibility threshold for these areas will increase from 25,000 to 30,000. And the change does reflect the movement in rents in recent years in these areas and will ensure local authority areas with similar accommodation costs continue to be grouped together in their respective bands. And these changes will come into effect from the 1st of October. It's now appropriate, and I do have to wait for that report that I referred to before considering any further income threshold levels for all counties. And I do believe they need to be increased, but I have to base whatever I will bring forward to get government approval on the report that I receive, and any potential impact indeed that those changes make. And we're doing this while we're increasing substantially the social housing new build stock that's out there. So, but this is an important piece of work that has not been done. We haven't had a proper review or change in income eligibility for over 10 years. I've made those first changes in the 5 counties that I've referred to. I expect to receive the further work on this before the end of the year, and I'm insisting on that. I actually met with officials on this yesterday. It is important for the many reasons that you've actually outlined there, that the income limits are applicable to today's world and to see how they fit in with our affordability thresholds as well. Because thankfully now also we're seeing a newer tenure coming through, which is the affordable rental and affordable housing at scale. And that in itself is important to how we see social housing fits in with the affordable housing measures that we're bringing forward, which are taking hold now, and which is provided for about €1.3 billion next year in new affordability measures. But I do intend that, as I said, I've insisted that that work be completed by the end of this year. I myself believe as Minister that the limits do need to change. They do need to be reviewed. And in the short term, and it's a short-term measure, I've changed the income eligibility for those 5 counties.
Minister, if I can turn to that short-term measure, and I welcome the changes that have been announced for County Galway and County Westmeath. But Minister, what have you got against people from County Roscommon? Did you have a teacher in school that you didn't get on with from County Roscommon? Because from the 1st of October, people living in Baylough in Athlone on the same income, living next door to each other, paying the same rent, the children playing with the same football teams, going to the same school, but because they live on opposite sides of a white line, there's going to be €6,000 of a difference in terms of the income thresholds from the 1st of October. And 17 minutes up the road in Glanthorne and Crea, it's even worse. There isn't even a white line in the middle of the road, and there is that differential there. So why are those people being discriminated against? Minister, we need to be inclusive and not exclusive. We cannot wait until the end of the year for these changes.
I think any fair analysis will show that I've already made some significant changes in 5 counties, the ones I could do straight away. To Deputy Naughton's point, I am looking at what we can do with regard to discretion, because I have received a number of cases and good examples where people are marginally over because of change in circumstances in the previous year and has pushed them over the limit. Now they're back under the limit, but some local authorities are insisting then that they go back for a new application. And I'm quite happy to use this opportunity to say that is something that I am absolutely looking at, and I'm using examples of some of the cases that deputies on government and the opposition side have actually forwarded to me. To work through what we can do, as I said, for some transitionary interim measures that are there. I'm very serious about making changes in this space, but you have to make the changes based on the proper research to make sure that the levels we go up to are commensurate also with our affordable housing piece and fit, and to see what is the best mechanism across the country, a banding system or a blanket system, or what that is. So, I'm not delaying this. The Housing Agency, who have a lot of regard for, they have a lot of expertise in this area, are commissioned, they're in charge of this piece of work. I've already said to my own officials in the department that I want this concluded by the end of the year. So we're coming into October, so we're basically looking at within the next 3 months. Like, that's the time frame that I want to work to bring measures and proposals to government to get approval for that. Because I know how important it is for people, and whilst we're increasing as a government social housing stock to levels not seen before, and that's good, and I meet new tenants all over the country who are getting their homes for life, which is fantastic, and it shows that the social housing programme is working, and we've got to get it up to a sustainable level. But we've got to make sure that those people who've been waiting a substantial period of time for those homes get those homes, and that our income limits, as you've rightly said, Deputy Naughton, are actually applicable to today's world too. So that work is underway. I hope to conclude it, to have recommendations to government before the end of the year, and I'll move on it very swiftly.
Thank you, Minister.